What's up, everybody? Welcome into a Buffalo Sports Thursday. We're rolling a little bit early today. Normally, we go in the evening with Sturls so he can join us and talk all things Buffalo sports. But tonight, we've got a preseason game. So, decided to fire it up a little bit early and make it a pregame show for all our Buffalo fan friends out there. So, thanks everybody for hopping in a little bit earlier than normal. Couple things I want to get to today. Scouted around for some Sabres news. Didn't really see much. Quiet in the hockey world right now, which is understandable. So we'll keep it to the Bills mostly today. Got the last preseason game. Lots of times people think those don't mean anything. That's not true. There's plenty to be decided still. Especially, on the back half of that roster. And it's not just about if guys will make the team, but, how you're going to kind of handle game day. You get 53 on the roster, but you only get so many jerseys on game day. And I think there's some guys who need to prove a little bit of something to try to get a jersey come week one. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We got a couple articles we'll go over. And of course, any questions that you have or anything that you want to talk about when it comes to Buffalo sports or the NFL at large, feel free to throw in the chat. We'll chat about it. All right, let's get fired up here. So our first piece of business is from Buffalo Rumblings. This one is John Boccaccio. Boccacino. And he just does a little preview of the game tonight. I thought he had some interesting players in here, though, for ones that he thought would be important for the game today. So who are some of the players that you want to watch and you want to see perform well in week 3? Here's his list. And I think it's actually interesting. So Mike Dana, he was brought in to give you some outside linebacker veteran depth for this new defense that Jim Leonhard has. And I don't think he's shown particularly well. I think he's shown as like a high floor guy, but I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot better uses of that roster spot than putting him on there. Now, if I can get him back on the practice squad, that's something that I'd consider. But excited to watch is I want to see something from him. I want to see him pop a little bit. And they're running very vanilla schemes through the first 2 games, and I expect that to continue. So you may not see anything spectacular, but I still noticed TJ Parker on the field. I noticed Javon Solomon on the field over these past couple games, and I haven't really for Mike Dana. So we'll see. He certainly is somebody who I think there's an interesting conversation about if he makes the roster. Zane Durant is definitely making the roster, but you want to see if maybe you can give him, real snaps on game day. You don't have a lot of defensive linemen on the roster who, you don't give any snaps to on a game day. But he has shown some flashes of maybe being able to compete at this level. So I would love to see him and have him flash a little bit more. And maybe we can get him to a spot where we put him in a rotation where he's getting, a decent amount of snaps come the regular season. For Kilgore, what's up, mental health guy? Oh, wow, throwback question. Who are you more frustrated with, JP Lossman or EJ Manuel? And do you have the jersey of either? No, I didn't have the jersey of either when I was a kid or now. I wasn't super young, but I was still younger for JP Lossman. With JP, I don't know. He never really felt like a fit for Buffalo. But the kicker for JP was we had Trent Edwards on the team at the same time, who ends up being our starting quarterback. And so, you know, when JP was first there, it was kind of like, oh yeah, here's the future at quarterback. But it was never really frustrating. Like I don't think there was a single year that he was on the roster that felt like he was the only option. It was either there were other veteran guys there that could start instead of Lossman, or at the end it was Trent Edwards can start instead of Lossman. And so I was never a big JP Lossman fan, but it always felt like you had another option. EJ Manuel was frustrating, just not because of anything EJ did, but just because, like, that year with him and Geno Smith, you were going into the draft and you knew we were going to take one, and you knew there wasn't one worth taking. So it was really frustrating because it was like you're going to set your clock back a couple years and there's no reason to do it. He's not good enough to be an NFL quarterback. And so it just felt like wasting time. Now, EJ actually played better than I thought he would, and this is when I was doing a lot of draft work and a lot of film work and stuff like that when I was younger. And so, like, I really did not think he was going to be good. He ended up playing better than I thought he would, and still not very good. But he had a couple moments where you said, is he starting to figure it out? You know what I mean? Is he coming around? So for me, to your question, I think EJ Manuel would have been the most frustrating era. I was also frustrated with the pick of Josh Allen. A lot of people were. But you had the perfect mix, the perfect storm to get him developed. And, you know, of course I was on board after they picked him. It was like, all right, this is our guy now. But I was certainly frustrated with the pick. I wanted them to take Baker. And if you remember, it wasn't until those last 24 hours that all of a sudden it was Baker Mayfield as the number one overall pick. I also like Sam Darnold a lot. I didn't think Sam Darnold would fall to them, but I like Sam Darnold a lot, and I didn't like Allen. And then if you couldn't get either of those guys, I wanted you to wait and take Lamar Jackson in the second round. Now, he doesn't make it to the second round. Baltimore takes him. I was okay with Josh Rosen. Didn't love him. Really, really what I wanted was Baker. And going into that year, I thought we could take him maybe in the second round. He obviously has a big year then. So I'm like, okay, can we trade up and get him? And then as we're moving up, coming up to the draft, I'm thinking we're moving up and we're going to get Baker. So, yeah, fun little trip down quarterback memory lane. Okay, safety Jalen Kilgore, and this one to me is a big one. He didn't play last week. You would have liked to see him again in the preseason. He's looked good in camp. Had a good first game. Played a lot the first game. You want to see him against what's probably mostly 2s and 3s. You want to see him kind of flash. Again, a guy who you're talking about giving a roster spot over some veteran guys, like maybe Geno Stone, and you need to see that he can handle the job if he has to during the year. But everything in camp says Kilgore is going to be, I should rephrase, because I'm not afraid of him making the roster. Of course, I think he's going to be on the roster. But, you want to see if you can trust him with a decent amount of snaps during the season if you need to, and I think he's there. Keontae Jenkins is interesting. A lot of people have said that they've really liked him. I haven't seen anything from him in particular that really wowed me. But interesting to think about how he fits in. on the inside linebacker spot. It's really, I mean, if we're breaking it down, it's really between him and Joe Andreessen, I think. And it might be an ending for Buffalo Joe here. I thought he would fit better in this defense than he did in McDermott's defense, but physically they might just think he doesn't quite have enough. So Keontae Jenkins is the person that would steal the spot from him, and it'll be interesting to see. I don't listen. In actuality, I don't think anybody's spot on the roster comes down to just tonight. But these are the people who could affect it with their play tonight. And then our guy John at Buffalo Rumblings also mentions Dante Pen. I think that's supposed to be Dante. I think that's a typo. Dante Pettis. And after he got signed late in camp, the talk, there was a lot of injuries, and he's ending up playing with the first team a lot because there's so many wide receivers out. And he acquitted himself well. Apparently him and Josh Allen had a good little flow going. So you'd love to see something from him that says, hey, he's probably, in my opinion, a practice squad guy, but you want to have that depth there where you're comfortable calling somebody like him up if you have to, as these injuries persist, if they don't get healthy coming up with the regular season. To have a club like that in your bag, I would feel pretty good about. He's been around the league. I feel good about him as a veteran wide receiver. I would also add to that mix Brandon Cooks, and can you sign him once the year starts as a veteran on the practice squad and just kind of let him ramp up throughout the course of the season? And then you've got this depth that I'm really comfortable with at wide receiver that you haven't had in years past. I don't want to be depending on Trent Sherfield, you know what I mean? And so I feel more comfortable with guys like that on the list. So that was Buffalo Rumblings' quick little breakdown. We'll go through a couple more here. Of course, if you want a Honda CRV, that's the spot to do it. This one from Randy Gurzy on SI. So Sports Illustrated, the Buffalo Bills version. So let's see who he's got on his list in terms of players that he wants to see do something. And Javon Solomon is topping it. I think Javon Solomon, I think he's going to make the roster. Like, I don't see him missing. He's talking about how he has thrived in the new defense, getting to be in a 2-point stance instead of a 3-point stance. He always had more of the build of a rush linebacker to me than a defensive end, so I agree with that. I feel like he's flashed in the first couple preseason games, so I think he's got a spot on the 53-man roster regardless. But if you're shaky about his spot, then yeah, I mean, a good performance tonight would go a long way to solidifying that spot on the 53-man roster. But I do think he's fairly safe. Also, Tyler Bass, I think, is fairly safe. I think this is more for the fans than it is for the coaching staff. He would have to, even if he melts down, like he has to melt down in a regular season game, and then they call Matt Prater, I think. Yes, you still want to see and make sure that he's fully healthy, can kick, but I think he's proved that we don't have to worry about his physical condition. It's just mentally, is he there? But he even mentions that this is more about the fans than the coaches. And Skylar Bell. And I think this is a great conversation. In fact, let's pull up the Bills depth chart. And credit to GR and Sal Capaccio for talking about this the other day. So, are you keeping 5 or 6 wide receivers on your 53-man roster? Because if you're not keeping 6 receivers, then Skylar Bell is your 5th. And you can't, on game day, go into a game with just 4 wide receivers with jerseys. So if they only keep 5, they're essentially saying Skylar Bell is going to get a jersey every game day. If they keep a 6th, then maybe he doesn't get a jersey and you give a jersey to one of the others. But now you're keeping 6 at wide receiver, and that's a little bit more than I think you were thinking that you would keep there. And who is that guy? Is it Sherfield because he can play a bunch of special teams? I am not a huge fan. Everybody knows this. I do not want him catching passes on the outside from Josh Allen. It literally cost us a season. Is it Mecole Hardman Jr., who everybody seems to hate? He definitely makes some mistakes. I don't think there's any reason to keep him on the roster if you can have Ray Davis return punts. And so I don't want him on the outside, and I don't want to give him a jersey on game day either, which then brings you to Dante Pettis, like we were talking about. I think Pettis has shown well, and if he's your 6th wide receiver and the one who gets a jersey on game days and you don't give one to Skylar Bell, well, okay, but I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. I would have to see their usage and use cases during the regular season. So I agree it's big for Skylar Bell. Not big in the sense that is he going to make the roster, but is he going to do enough to earn a jersey on game days? And I just think it's a big question still. Hasn't played in the preseason yet. Didn't really make any splashes at camp from the reporters out there. It sounded like nothing to see here. So, I think this is an example of, this could be a big day for Skylar Bell. And we got to see him maybe do something, not to see if he makes the 53, but to see if, we feel like we can give him a jersey for regular season games. Okay. So then this was, and I think this is also Randy. Yeah, Randy Gurzy of SI, the Bills version of SI. And so then he also made 3 bold predictions for the preseason finale versus the Steelers. So let's see what he's got. Shane Buechele makes it interesting. I think Kyle Allen has it locked up. That's his opening line here. I think Kyle Allen has won the backup job, much to my chagrin. It was really, I was thinking they might bring in some outside help. But his bold prediction is that Shane Buechele makes it interesting. I think they've both operated the offense okay. I have no confidence in either of them operating an offense in the regular season with any kind of consistency. And that freaks me out. Like, I don't like that at all. And so I've been a proponent of going and trying to get a guy, is Anthony Richardson available? I'd even flip a late round pick for like a Michael Penix, which I think he's going to end up starting for Atlanta. But you get what I'm saying. Like, who are the guys who aren't going to start, who might be available for a late round pick as a backup quarterback? I wouldn't want Jared Stidham. Justin Fields probably not available, given Mahomes' injury. But yeah, I mean, so I would want to be watching and see if we could send a late round pick and pick up a quarterback. Because I just don't believe that Kyle Allen really has it. You know what I mean? I don't think he can do it if you need him to. And, I understand. Everybody's saying if Josh goes down, we're screwed anyway. Yes. I hear you. If Josh goes down, we're screwed. If Josh goes down for the season. But if Josh, we've been super lucky and credit to Josh as well. But like, if Josh just misses like 3 games, with some kind of short-term injury, well then, I think we should pursue a backup quarterback who can win you 1 or 2 of those 3 games. And I don't think the Bills have it right now. I really don't. So far in the preseason, Kyle Allen's 10 for 12 with an 83% completion percentage, 128 yards, and 1 touchdown. But, I don't think that there's enough there to win a football game if Josh is out just for like a game or 2. And so I still am a proponent of trying to go get somebody. I'm fine with Shane Buechele or Kyle Allen or both being on the practice squad. If Josh likes them in the room and wants them in the room, then great. You know what I mean? Put them on the practice squad. But I just would like something a little bit more at backup quarterback. Randy apparently doesn't think Javon's spot is locked up. So his bold prediction number 2 is Javon Solomon secures a spot on the 53-man roster. I tend to think it's locked up already, personally. And we'll go over a full 53 here in a little bit. Pardon. You got Rousseau, you got Hoyt, Chubb, Parker. And then I think Javon Solomon's your 5th. I think it's Mike Dana that, like, you have to wonder if he's going to make the team or not. And I think either of them they would try to bring back on the practice squad and probably be able to. You might be able to flip a vet like Dana for a pick. You might be able to flip Javon Solomon for a pick like you did Kingsley Jonathan a few years ago. I think that was Kingsley Jonathan. And this will let you know if David's in the chat or not, because if I mention Kingsley Jonathan, he is going to get all excited. So I think he's your 5th guy here at outside linebacker. Maybe I'm wrong with that. I don't think Landon Jackson belongs here on the depth chart. I think he's up here with the defensive line. So I think this is the wrong spot for him. I do think he makes the roster, but I don't think it's at that position. So we're going to have to see. Randy's bold prediction is that he does lock up that spot. He talks about his first couple preseason games and how much he's benefited from the new scheme. And I agree. I mean, I think he just looks better in it. I think it's better for how he likes to rush. And I think he's got a body that fits it better. He popped to me in those preseason games, but maybe he didn't to Randy. So maybe that's why Randy's saying he'll lock up his spot for this one, but I think he's got it on lock. Skylar Bell scores a touchdown in his debut. I think that would go a long way. Again, I don't think the coaches are basing their evaluation off one preseason game, right? So they probably have their mind made up for the most part about giving him snaps in the regular season or not. But I think it would go a long way for the Mafia to see him do something and feel like I can trust this guy on game day. It's been a tough camp weather-wise, been a tough camp on the wide receiver room, been a lot of injuries, so a lot of guys running with the first team in and out. So I think they've gotten a good enough look at him with Allen. But I don't think, at least the reports were never that he was shining at camp. So, yeah, I mean, I think a TD from Skylar Bell would put Bills fans at ease a little bit in this preseason game. And if Josh Allen called the play for it, then, I think they'd be real fired up. One of the questions that, again, GR, credit to them, asked was, with all these injuries, what does your opening day wide receiver set look like? I've heard Joshua Palmer has had a really nice camp. I think you get him and DJ Moore as your starting outside wide receivers. If Khalil Shakir can't go, you don't really have another guy that fits that slot type spot. You could run Coleman in there. If Coleman goes and Shakir doesn't, you could run Coleman in there. I've heard people say that they think he would be effective in there. But I really think you're running more tight ends in the slot then. You're just running more 2 tight end sets, and Dalton Kincaid is your slot receiver. And he's not working the same way that Khalil Shakir does. But I just think with James Cook's ability out of the backfield, with, if Ty Johnson is healthy, Ty Johnson's ability out of the backfield, with Dalton Kincaid, you fill that slot pass catcher role differently than, the skill set that Khalil Shakir has. So it's an interesting question with all the injuries that they've had at the wide receiver position, who you think is going to play in that spot and how you think they're going to play in that spot. But I really think it's a Dalton Kincaid answer, right? I think you go 1 back, 2 tight ends, and 2 receivers, and I think the Bills offense is very comfortable operating in that personnel set. So if Shakir can't go, okay, and if he can, then I think you see more 11. But if he can't, I think they're real comfortable operating with Knox and Kincaid. As a passing offense, they're real comfortable operating with those 2 tight ends on the field, even if it might give away a little bit what they're doing. So, and I think they want to disguise that more. Knox was fine as far as disguising if it was run or pass. But Kincaid was the one that if you put him out there, they knew, you were throwing the ball. I think they want to run more with Kincaid on the field and not make that as big of a tell as it was last year. And his health is going to go a long way to determining that. So, I think you could see a lot of drives that are 12 personnel and it's DJ Moore and Shakir on the field and, Knox and Kincaid or Kincaid and Hawes and you run the ball. It's not even really a passing set. So, I don't know. I feel good about the Bills and their weapons, particularly because I feel good about them being able to mix and match and get matchups that they want. They can kill you with James Cook. They can kill you with Dalton Kincaid. They can kill you with DJ Moore. And that's what they were missing last year. They couldn't kill you with one of their wide receivers. And so it just created a situation where your wide receivers get deleted, makes it easier to cover everybody else on the field. And so, the fact that I don't think they have all-time great weapons, but I think they have good weapons everywhere. And it's going to be on Joe Brady to put the offense in situations where, okay, who's your weak link in coverage? Let's figure out how to get somebody on him, whether it's Cook or Kincaid or DJ Moore. Let's figure out how to get one of our good guys on your bad guy. So, you're not going to attack the best corner or the best coverage linebacker on the team. Your weapons, your fifth weapon is better than their fifth coverage guy. That's the way to think about it, right? It's not your first weapon is better than their first coverage guy, though you'd like DJ Moore to win some of those battles from time to time. But that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is my fifth guy is better than your fifth guy. And you got to trust Josh Allen to find him, and you got to trust Joe Brady to scheme it up. But I have faith in those things. You know what I mean? I have faith that that'll work. So if Khalil Shakir or Keon Coleman or both can't go against Houston, I just think you see more Kincaid and Knox on the field at the same time. And I think this Bills offense is very capable and comfortable operating in that 12 personnel. And we can also get our old friend, Coach Mike Sanford, jacked up and run some 13 too and put 3 tight ends out there and run an offense that way. Run a high school offense with all 3 tight ends out there, Knox, Kincaid, and Hawes. So I think that's it for Randy's article here. Yeah, that's the end of that one. But yeah, I mean, I think it would go a long way for Bills fans if Skylar Bell scored a touchdown tonight. Okay, so this one from Ryan Talbot, NewYorkUp.com, New York Upstate. And it's a projection of the 53. Actually, you know what? Let's take a break. Let's take a quick break. We'll do this one on the other side. We'll go through his projection for the 53-man roster. I think I'm going to agree with him in most spots. I think most spots are locked up. But we'll see where he's at with some of the fringe positions in terms of his 53-man roster projection. So we'll do that on the other side. We're going to run some commercials to burn the pre-roll, and we will be right back. Stick with us. All right, everybody, welcome back. Do a little 53-man roster projection here with our guy Ryan Talbot of NewYorkUp.com. I know, we're sickos. I get it. It's fine. I'm good with it. So a good way to think about the 53 is essentially you got 25 on each side of the ball and 3 specialists. You split those 25 up the way that you want, but that's kind of the easy breakdown. You could have 1 or 2 the other direction. But generally you have 25 on each, and that's what Ryan has here. He's got Allen and Allen in the quarterback room. He says Kyle Allen's performance in the team's first 2 preseason games showed that he's a capable backup. I don't know. I mean, we just spent a little bit of time talking about this, so I won't beat a dead horse too much, but did anybody feel like that was a quarterback capable of starting NFL games when they watched him play? Now, listen, if he's got to come in off the bench and try to hold it together for you in a game, then maybe I'm okay with that. But any kind of like he's got to start, it's I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't feel it. And so I think people are searching because they want him to be good enough because they know he's going to be the answer. But 2 things can be true there. He can not be good enough and he can still be the answer. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. We all know that he's going to be the guy. But it doesn't mean that we just have to say like, oh, okay, well, I think he's good enough. His performances were good. I don't see a guy there who's capable of coming in and starting multiple games if you need him to. So just having those 2 in the quarterback room, a little bit iffy for me. He puts Bouchel on the practice squad, and I think that's a fine spot for him. 3 at running back. He says no surprises here. I think there's people who are starting to talk about Ian Wheeler. I think Ian Wheeler's a practice squad guy, but he's the kind of practice squad guy you want. You know, like you want to feel good about a guy if you have to pull him up and put him on the roster. And Frank Gore has been that guy for a couple years now where, you know, if I had to get through a game with Frank Gore taking the majority of touches, I wouldn't feel terrible about that. And I could say the same thing about Ian Wheeler. Talbot points out the very specific role that Ty Johnson has. Ian Wheeler and Frank Gore are more backbacks. You know what I mean? Like they're real. What do I want to say? Bell cow. You know, heavy touches. They're not as much the receiving threats that Ty Johnson is, and he's considered the 3rd running back. Ray Davis has really solidified his place as the 2nd running back with his ability on kick returns and now hopefully punt returns as well. So, but I mean, I think you're real comfortable with James Cook out there on 3rd down too. So I don't think you have to keep Ty Johnson for that role. You know, I've heard Sal Capaccio say it. I've heard Ryan Talbot say it, that Ty Johnson has this very specific role as a 3rd down back. And I don't disagree with it. It's just, I think James Cook can do it too. So to say you have to keep Ty Johnson on the roster because of that, I don't agree with. I don't really think so. Now, if you think what he gives you there is more valuable than what Ian Wheeler would give you as a 3rd running back, that I might agree with. But just the nature of his role that he has doesn't mean that he's the only guy that you can have at that position. I think your top running back is good at at being a third down back as much as a bell cow. I don't mind having James Cook out there on third down. Maybe not as good in pass protection, but you're comfortable with him as a receiver out of the backfield. And so, your third guy can be whoever. It doesn't have to be a third down back. So I just disagree with the sentiment there. Doesn't mean I disagree with the pick. I think Ty Johnson, what he gives you is more than what Ian Wheeler or Frank Gore would. Love to have him back on the practice squad. And that's interesting. So he goes, Buffalo places Gore and Wheeler on the practice squad. Yeah, I'd love to have them both back on the practice squad. But it's possible somebody snatches one up. I'm trying to think who's got running back injuries. Seattle's got a couple running back injuries. I can't think of anybody who's had a real serious running back injury, though. So, always got to keep it in the back of your mind if a team would snatch them up. But I think the thing that people forget is, you're already cutting 30 guys or whatever off your roster. You're going to cut an extra one to pick up somebody else's scraps. I mean, it just doesn't happen, I think, as often as people would hope. There's definitely teams in the league like the Miamis who just don't have a lot of talent on their roster and will go picking off the garbage heap, but I just don't think it's as many as you think. Fullback, Ben Van Sumeren. Okay, interesting. So Talbot says it was the toughest decision on the roster to keep him or not. I don't know if they need a fullback. Like, we kept Sledgy because, he was good in a lot of you can see it by the contract that he got offered. Reggie Gilliam wasn't just a fullback. It was very good at it, but he was also a good special teamer. And you felt comfortable with him in like an H-back type role. Ben Van Sumeren, I don't know. How many times are you going to run a two-back set out there? How many spots do you have for guys on special teams, and what does he give your offense? So Talbot says Van Sumeren ended up taking up the final roster spot over Keontae Jenkins and Sam Franklin. All three can contribute on special teams, but only Van Sumeren can play offense if the team is looking to utilize a fullback in specific matchups. I can't think of a situation where I would be I have to have a fullback. And if I do have to have a fullback and I don't have Ben Van Sumeren in there, my thought process is, you mean to tell me that I can't get Joe Andreessen to line up and run into somebody? Don't get me wrong, that clip from Van Sumeren the other day was awesome. It was the Browns game, and he just came and absolutely whammed a Browns player who thought he had a free release right up the field, was not looking and ended up looking out of his ear hole. It was beautiful. It was high school football at its finest. but I don't know. It's interesting because I think Keontae Jenkins can give you something on defense if you need him to. I guess Van Sumeren can give you something on offense. It's just not a lot. And Sam Franklin gives you absolutely nothing on defense. And so we're going to find out this year if it was a McDermott thing or a Bean thing that they keep a guy on the roster just to play special teams. And that's Sam Franklin. But Ben Van Sumeren and Keontae Jenkins both give you something, and you're not terrified to put them out on the field like you are with Sam Franklin when it comes to playing their side of the ball. And then on top of that, they give you special teams as well. So for me, Sam Franklin, not in this conversation. It's Keontae Jenkins or Ben Van Sumeren, and I just don't know if they need a fullback. I think I would prefer to have an extra linebacker to having a fullback, but it'll be interesting. That'll definitely be one of the interesting roster spots Talbot puts him in. Talbot keeps 6 wide receivers: DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman, Joshua Palmer, Skylar Bell, and Trent Sherfield is his 6th. And he says right there, Bill's top 5 is set. I don't think there's any questions about that. He does say the health of Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman could complicate things. You wonder if they put one of them on that short-term injured reserve where they can just come back in, I think it's 4 weeks. But that would be news, you know. Shakir, I think we've seen working off to the side. I don't know if we've seen Coleman working off to the side. But he says for now we're going to assume they'll be ready to play week 1. If not, you probably go Sherfield and Pettis. Dante Pettis would be my guess. But, you know, I guess you have to consider Mecole Hardman there too. Buffalo's biggest question is whether or not they carry a 6th receiver. In this exercise, the Bills opt to do so with veteran Trent Sherfield. Sherfield, in addition to playing at wide receiver, is a 4-core special teams player. Shavers starts the season on the PUP list. Yeah, he's definitely going to be on the PUP list. He likely won't be back till late in the season, if at all. But you hope to see him. So, again, if I'm keeping a guy like Trent Sherfield, do I need Ben Van Sumeren on the roster? Right? Like, yes, you need people to play special teams, but how many guys are you keeping just to play special teams? Can we not get backup linebackers and safeties to play special teams, right? And so you're putting Sherfield on there because he plays all 4 special teams. Well, great. Well, then maybe I don't need Ben Van Sumeren. You know what I mean? What are we talking about here? Tight ends, 3. I don't think this is any kind of conversation at all. Yeah, Buffalo's tight end room is set. I don't think they consider keeping a 4th. Jackson Hawes gives you a unique skill set. Dawson Knox gives you a little bit of both. Dalton Kincaid gives you a unique skill set, and the 3 of them together create one of the great superpowers on the roster. So, offensive line. Okay, he's keeping 10 offensive linemen, which is 1 more than I'd think. So, it was recently announced Alec Anderson's going to start at left guard. I don't think that's much of a shock. McGovern has been dealing with an injury. He had said his goal was to be back by week 1. I think you just have to be honest about that if he's going to make it back for week 1 or not, because I think one of their biggest trade pieces is one of the backup centers. One of their biggest questions will be whether or not Jude Bauer is healthy enough to start the season on the main roster, and whether or not the team looks into trading a player like Cedric Van Granger, like I was just saying. So yeah, it's VPG or Cushenberry. Either one of them, whichever one you don't want to keep as center depth. Both of them are only centers. So whichever one of them you don't want to keep for center depth, a team like the Chargers, somebody else just had a center go down too. But might be looking for more depth at the center position. Broncos have had a couple injuries there as well. So would they be interested in flipping a late round pick for either Cushenberry or Van Granger? If they're keeping both of them on the roster, they have 3 centers on the roster. McGovern, of course, is capable of playing guard, as we've seen. It started a whole year there, but I just think, like, the other 2 are center only. Cushenberry and VPG are really center only. And so keeping 3 center onlys on the roster doesn't seem likely to me, but Talbot does here. If you do that, it screams to me we think we can trade one of them for a late round pick. And we're going to hold on until everybody makes all their cuts and then see if we can get something for one of them. Bowery, I think they're going to, even if he's healthy enough to be on the starting roster, I think he's going to be a stash. I think they're going to put him on that straight to IR and open up another roster spot to be able to do it. So the way that Talbot has it is Bowery is actually on the 53. And then he says in the last line, Bowery currently in a walking boot, so his timeline is unknown. If he needs to go on injured reserve, Chase Lunt could take his spot initially on the roster. And I think that's probably something that they'll do if they don't want to use that extra roster spot somewhere else. But I think they're going to play a game with Jude Bowery because I don't think Jude Bowery right now is good enough to put in an NFL game. You are stashing him because you feel like you can develop him, and that's fine. You don't want somebody to nab him on waivers or put him on their practice squad or whatever. You would want to try to talk him into coming back to you and be on your practice squad. But I just don't think he's good enough to put in an NFL game right now. So I think they hide him with the IR and Lunt takes his spot on the roster. Oh, there's more down here about VPG, so let's see. As for Van Pran Granger, Buffalo could receive calls for the center guard. The Bills could move him in favor of keeping somebody like Armaj Reed Adams, but the Bills' 2026 pick doesn't have much versatility and may be best suited only at right guard. It's interesting that he said that. I feel like he's a center only. I know he's taking snaps at guard, and I felt like the consensus was that he only plays center. So interesting that that's what he says. Maybe I've been misreading when people say he doesn't have versatility. Maybe I've been misreading and everybody thinks he's only a guard and not a center, but I've always thought he was center only. But yeah, I mean, it's those inside guys that you think you might be able to get a late pick for. I think you've got good depth at the offensive line. Okay, his 25 on defense. Defensive line, don't think there's any surprises here. You don't know what the health is of Ed Oliver. You don't know how much of that is. Thanks for the follow. C, what's up, C? Appreciate the follow. So for Ed Oliver, you don't know how much time he's missed because of injury and how much time he's missed just because of personal stuff. So I don't know how healthy he is. Maybe going into week 1, you can have a conversation there about if he's a straight to IR guy too. But I don't think so. I think he's healthy. He's looked healthy in videos of him at practice. So we'll just have to wait and see. The rest of the guys here, I feel like are locks. Greg Gaines is your new guy, so he might be the one where people thought maybe he wasn't a lock for the roster. I thought he looked really good in his first preseason game. So I will definitely want to see more of that, but you also didn't have a guy at nose tackle for me. And so if you don't have a guy at nose tackle, Greg Gaines' spot is pretty easy to put on the roster. Now remember, Fedarian Mathis, because of his suspension, you can put him right on the suspended list. He doesn't count against your 53-man roster. So really, they're carrying 7 defensive linemen, but they don't have to decide about how to get Fedarian Mathis on the roster until week 3, after week 3. So, which is what Talbot says right there. Now, and he says this at the bottom. The notable cut here is Dwayne Carter. Carter put together an impressive performance against the Browns, especially in run defense, but he is firmly on the roster bubble entering the team's preseason finale. Sturls and I talked about this last week. I understand people not feeling like he offers you enough to roster him. I'd like to have him back on the practice squad. I think the kid has had a real tough go of what you've been asking him to do over the last 3 years. Year one, he comes in, he's playing defensive tackle, ends up getting hurt, spends all year two hurt, and then you ask him to put on a bunch of weight and play a different position. And that weight isn't always necessarily healthy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to learn how to use that weight. You have to convert that weight into something that's useful to the player. And if he's not used to playing with that much weight on, he probably doesn't know how to anchor it. He probably doesn't know. It's probably not the best weight. Like, it's probably more fat than muscle. And you might be able to convert that more to muscle over time. So I don't mind you not including him on the 53. I'm just not ready to give up on him overall. I don't think he would get claimed by anybody. It's possible. But, yeah, I mean, so that's the interesting cut there. I think it's coming. You know what I mean? I'm not ready to give up on the guy altogether. Outside linebacker, he keeps 5. No Mike Dana. Chubb, Rousseau, Hoyt, Parker, Sullivan. I think that's pretty set. It sounds like the reporters are less convinced that Solomon is set in that spot, but I think he is. Talbot says there's no question in the top 4. I don't think they carry 6. This is, I think, the point here. Dana might go sign elsewhere, but okay. I'm not that worried about losing him. And if not, you can add him back to the practice squad. So I feel pretty good there. No Keontae Jenkins. So inside linebacker, they keep 4. Bernard, Williams, Elarms Orr, and Andreessen. Starting job is still up for grabs. I don't think it really is. I think they're going to start Dorian Williams because they just don't want to start a rookie. But I also don't love that. You know what I mean? Put your best 11 out on the field, and if you think Elarms Orr is your best, then put him out there. Keontae Jenkins made a case for a spot on the 53-man roster and could still find his way there, but Buffalo Joe takes the final inside linebacker spot after a strong performance against the Browns and his special teams ability. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'd love to keep them both to play special teams. I would flip Ben Van Sumeren for Keontae Jenkins in terms of what they can offer the team, unless you're Joe Brady and you're telling me you're actually going to use a fullback a lot. I just don't know if they will. So I might like Keontae Jenkins there more than Ben Van Sumeren, but certainly a conversation worth having. So that's an interesting cut there. Cornerback, Benford, Hairston, Igbinosun, Alford. I find it interesting putting Hancock with the corners, but sure. And then Kenai Walker. And Kenai Walker is the darling of camp. If you do that, if you keep Kenai Walker and cut Toriano Pride, you're cutting a draft pick. And I don't know. I mean, Brandon Bean Bills have just not done that all that much. But it sounds like Kenai Walker has won that spot. So if he's done enough to win the spot, it's a bad look to the rest of the roster if you keep somebody just because they're a draft pick. And so that would mean that Toriano Pride has to get cut. If the Bills get into a pinch on the outside, D. Alford can play on the boundary. This would also allow Jordan Hancock to see more time on the field. That would be a positive for the defense based on the summer. Hancock's ability to play cornerback and safety will help the Bills' secondary this season. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to try to find ways to get him on the field, no doubt. So I think Jordan Hancock has been really the highlight of the defensive backfield. Can he translate that into Sundays during the regular season remains to be seen. Safety, they're keeping 4, 5 if you count Hancock. Bishop, Gardner-Johnson, Hamlin, and Kilgore are his picks here. I think that's probably how it shakes out. Geno Stone then is your notable cut. He might get picked up by somebody. He won't have to pass through waivers. I think he's got enough time in the league that he doesn't have to do waivers. But he might get an offer from somebody who is safety needy to come in and be a depth veteran safety. If not, I'd love to have him back on the practice squad just to have some depth, but I'm not in any kind of need to keep Geno Stone around based on what I've seen from him. Rookie Jalen Kilgore gets the final spot. He's missed some time with an injury, but was a standout during training camp. And then your special teams guys. And it's not nothing. Because with the 2 punters on the team, it's at least a question of who they will keep as their punter. Ferguson's your long snapper, you know that. You're going to go into the season with Bass, probably much to the chagrin of Bills fans. But he's going to have to melt down in a regular season game for them to move off of Tyler Bass as the kicker. But Talbot has Tommy Doman Jr. as your punter, and that means that Mitch Wishnowsky gets cut. I would rather see Tommy Doman. I think he's looked fine. I know not all his punts have been great. The real question I have is are him and Tyler Bass comfortable running the operation for kicks together? Because we saw a lot of Wishnowsky holding for Bass and not a lot of Doman holding for Bass. And that's one of the things I think you can look at and get a hint tonight about how they're leaning. Whoever is holding for Bass, I think, is probably the favorite. But there is a world where Wishnowsky holds for Bass because that just makes Bass more comfortable, and Doman punts, and then Doman wins the job. So I think tonight they will go with whoever they think is going to be their regular season punter will be the holder for Tyler Bass to get them some game reps. But you never know. But I mean, I've been impressed with Doman, so I think he's probably the guy. As far as practice squad, I think the Bills might bring in a couple outside guys for their practice squad. We're used to them not doing that because I think McDermott didn't like doing that. But Brady might be okay with it. And so he gives this list of guys, all ex-Bills, that they would keep on the practice squad. And I just think it's worthwhile to open your mind to the fact that they might fill some spots from other teams. Shane Buechele, Frank Gore Jr., Ian Wheeler, McCole Hardman, Jamori Macklin, Kaliki Letu, Armaj Reed Adams, and Chase Lunt. I feel pretty good about that. I don't know that I would switch any of those. Mike Dana, Andre Jones, Keonta Jenkins, Jordan Dunbar, Tariano Pride, DeCorey Couch, Geno Stone, Sam Franklin Jr. I don't need Sam Franklin on that list. I'm okay with it. If you feel like you've got enough on special teams, I do not need him on that list. Jordan Dunbar, I don't necessarily need. Corey Couch, I don't necessarily need. Geno Stone, I don't necessarily need. And so those would be the spots that you might flip and grab somebody from another team's cuts and put him on your practice squad. So I think the practice squad is actually more interesting than people give it credit for. So let's read what he actually has to say about it. There's concern about Gore Jr. and Wheeler clearing waivers. It's possible that one gets claimed, but it wouldn't surprise me if both get through and get to the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if one of them gets taken, but again, everybody's cutting 30-plus players. Like, are they going to cut an extra person to put Frank Gore Jr. or Ian Wheeler on the roster? It would be interesting. If Van Pran Granger gets moved, the Bills could elevate Reed Adams to the 53-man roster. In that event, Bruno Fina could claim a spot on the practice squad. Yeah, that's interesting. You're just kind of moving all the offensive linemen up one there. I think you could see the same thing with Chase Lunt, personally. So, but it's all about if you think you can get a pick for one of those two interior guys, either Cushenberry or Van Pran Granger. The way that Talbot is writing this, he's making it sound like it's a deadlock, that he thinks Cushenberry is their choice over Van Pran Granger. I didn't get that sense from the reporting, but of course he's actually on the inside and I'm just listening to what reporters say. So it would be interesting if that was locked in already. I would think if they were going to move one that they would move Cushenberry, but he's saying VPG might be the one that gets moved. It's no guarantee that Jenkins clears waivers or that Stone and Dana don't sign elsewhere. I think Stone is probably gone. Dana, I don't know. I feel like Dana might. I don't think he's going to necessarily sign anywhere. As far as Keontae Jenkins clearing waivers, that would be interesting to me if other teams watched his tape and thought enough of him to put a waiver claim in on him. I think he's been good. I just don't think he's been that good. All three would be good additions if they find themselves in a pinch at outside linebacker, inside linebacker, or safety. Franklin Jr. is only a special teams player at this point in his career, but he's a really good one in that role. He's worth a veteran spot just for that alone. Do I agree with that? You only get 6 veteran spots on the practice squad. Do I want to burn one of them on a guy who literally only plays special teams? I'd have a tough time with it. I really would. Like, I don't mind him being on your practice squad, but you're just never going to call him up. Like, think about all the injuries that would have to happen for you to be like, well, we need special teams help, so call up Sam Franklin. You know what I mean? Like, he's either on your 53 because you need special teams help that bad, or I don't know that I want to burn a veteran spot on the practice squad for him. Now, listen, on the practice squad, the projections that he has here, I don't know that there's anybody else that I would want to keep. But I do, and this is what's in the back of my head, I do want a veteran spot available for Brandon Cooks. And I want it to be a possibility that they do what they did with, Gabe Davis and Jordan Poyer last year with Brandon Cooks this year. Sign him to your practice squad. Let him practice with the boys. Let him ramp up real slow during the season. And then if you ever get into a spot that you need help at wide receiver, I don't have to go picking up off the waiver wire. I've got, Brandon Cooks there. So he doesn't have Pettis on here at all? Am I reading that right? Yeah, he's got Pettis as just off the team. Now that might be because his 6 veteran spots have been taken. I would have to look at who is taking up those spots. Franklin, Stone, Dana, Andre Jones? I don't know if he's got enough accrued years. I don't know if Frank Gore has enough accrued years. I don't know if Shane Buechele has enough accrued years. But yeah, I mean, so that's what, 5, and then Mecole Hardman is 6. So maybe he couldn't get Pettis on because he didn't have an extra spot for a vet. But I'd like Pettis to be on there. I'd like Cooks. I'd like you to have a spot to sign Cooks if he wants to come back. I'm okay with that. So I would prefer that if you needed depth eventually at the wide receiver spot, especially over Mecole Hardman. But Mecole Hardman, I think, is more you would sign him back to the practice squad in case you run into returner problems. I just don't trust him back there. I don't want him back there, but that's what he's doing. So, an interesting 53-man roster projection from Talbot. I think there's some tells that you could get from the game tonight about how they're leaning in terms of the 53-man roster. And I think, and we talked about this in the first segment, I think there's discussions to be had about who gets a jersey on game day and how many snaps do those people get. Guys like Zane Durant, Skylar Bell, Jordan Hancock. I think how many sub packages are they in? How much are you going to sub them in and out just to give guys a break? I just think there's questions to be answered about how involved some of these guys are going to be, and I think they could help themselves with a good showing tonight. So, all right, so there's your 53-man roster projection. We are going to take another break. We'll run some pre-roll and then come back and do some NFL headlines, talk general football around the league. Stick with us, and we'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Let's do some NFL headlines across the league and a couple, think pieces as well from ESPN. And of course, it's ESPN, so we've got to adjust our whole setup because they don't justify their website the same way as everybody else. Congratulations, you're a special boy. Okay, so we'll start with the NFL eliminating the Pro Bowl games, but we'll still name Pro Bowlers. Finally! Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Been saying this for a decade. Of course, you still need the honor itself because it affects contracts. Now, I feel like it's been put in there less recently than in years past, but it's okay to have a starting team for each conference. I don't know that we need 88, right? Thank God we won't have any replacements now, so we won't have Shadur Sanders and backup quarterback for the Ravens, Huntley, being selected as Pro Bowlers. I feel like you could go with like a first and second team for AFC and NFC, which would be like a total of 44 players. I don't think you need 88. You needed that when you were playing an actual football game, but I think you've got twice as many Pro Bowlers as you need. And so I think you could cut it down to first and second team Pro Bowlers. And then you get first and second team All Pro, first and second team Pro Bowlers. And I think you feel good about that. But they tried. So credit to them. But I just don't think anybody cares about All-Star games anymore. Like, it used to be cool because you couldn't watch all the games. There were no online highlights, like all of that stuff. None of that's true anymore. Like, you have the internet. It's not like, oh my God, you get to see all the best players on one field. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? And so, yes, I agree that the honor itself of being selected as a Pro Bowler, it actually might get a better rap now. To be a Pro Bowler because, there's not all the alternates. It's not as watered down. And so being a Pro Bowler might actually mean more now than it has in recent years. So, yeah, I mean, I'm good with it. I've been begging for this for years. So cut it out when nobody needs it. Nobody wants it. Next headline. NFL renews its deals with DraftKings, FanDuel, and adds Fanatics. Allow them to use intellectual property rights for the league and team marks and logos. They will collaborate with the NFL on what types of bets are offered, intelligence sharing, advocacy efforts, and responsible gaming initiatives. The league objects to bets tied to officiating and injuries or wagers that can be knowable in advance or easily manipulated by a single person. Here's the standout line from David Purdom of ESPN. Financial terms of the new deals were not disclosed. Of course they weren't. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever, I guess. The NFL limits the number of sportsbook ads shown during games to approximately one per quarter during the 2025 regular season. National TV games featured 2 sportsbook ads on average, with more on primetime contests, according to iSpot TV. Yeah, I mean, it's just real murky water here, but okay. It's not like it's going away. Way too much money. Sources say that the Dolphins are trading Tutu Atwell back to the Rams for Jarquez Hunter. I don't know who Jarquez Hunter is. Atwell's only 26. That's kind of crazy. But, I mean, listen, if he's comfortable there, if Matt Stafford's comfortable with him, that's fine. Hunter is 23, was selected by the Rams in the fourth round of the 2025 draft. He appeared in 5 games during his rookie season. Yeah, I don't know anything about him. Running back. Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, I think the news there is Tutu Atwell headed back to the Rams. Let's look at their depth chart real quick. Jordan Whittington's their third. Already got Tutu Atwell on there. Yeah, I think that's a depth move for somebody that they're comfortable with, and I think that's a pretty solid move for the Rams. As far as the Miami Dolphins, it makes sense they added a guy I haven't heard about, and that says a lot about their roster. I think that's the worst roster in football, like with a bullet. When you look at the other teams that are not great teams, you go down the list and you're like, oh, that guy's really talented, and this guy's got a chance to be good, and this guy and that guy. When you go down the Dolphins roster, it's like Devon Achane, see you next year. You know what I mean? And if I was Achane, I'd be itching to get out of there, man. Like, I just don't think that's going to be tough. So, Leonard Williams, 3-year, $90 million extension. He's one of the best in the NFL. Good for him. $56 million guaranteed is the number. Tied with Vita Vea for 5th largest annual income for a defensive tackle, behind Jalen Carter, Quinn Williams, Jeffrey Simmons, and Chris Jones. And I think that's a good spot for him. 32, but for a defensive tackle, especially one who's as much of a freak as him, you don't worry about running him through his mid-30s. So yeah, I think good deal for both. I mean, it's a little bit more than you want to spend on a DT, but if you get one of the top guys, you get one of the top guys, Okay. Up next, 2027 NFL mock draft preseason first round predictions. I like reading this stuff, not because I think the predictions are worth anything, but I just think it's nice to go through and take a look at like who you should be watching as the college football season rolls around. And it doesn't mean that they're going to be in a first round pick, coming up. But at least where your eyes should be, kind of thing. So I love scrolling through these, especially preseason. Dante Moore to Cleveland through a projected trade. Yeah, I agree. I think the Dolphins are going to have the number 1 pick. So, but I would be shocked if they traded it. Like Dante Moore, don't love Dante Moore. Let's see what they say about him. Moore has squeaky clean mechanics, and his accuracy shined in his first year as a starter. This would be a good situation for him with young players he can grow alongside. If he brings his stellar college play to the NFL, the Browns could turn things around quickly. Listen, here's what he does have there is 2 receivers this year that are rookies that everybody is talking about. How well Boston and Concepcion are playing. And we'll see if that continues during the year. They were apparently real tough on Bills starters in practice, and that says something. So, if you bring in a quarterback, a guy like Dante Moore, he's got a couple good weapons already, and that doesn't even count Fannin. So they got an interesting set of weapons there. You add a quarterback who can take advantage of them, I think you're in a good spot. So, Arizona Cardinals, Arch Manning QB Texas. This might be another Manning episode because I don't know if there's a worse owner to play for right now than the Arizona Cardinals. But he does. There are some weapons there. You know, if they keep Harrison Jr. and McBride, now they got Love. There's some weapons there. It's not a terrible spot for a quarterback to go into. You just have to believe in the organization. And we all know the Mannings have said, I'm not playing for your organization before. So Carson Beck looked good this preseason. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Beck or Brissett have anything to do with if they take a quarterback or not. Not a whole lot of breakdown there, but yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense, obviously. Jets, CJ Carr, quarterback, Notre Dame. Now we're getting into reach territory. No way the best three players in college football are quarterbacks. And if you're going to take a quarterback third overall and it's the third best guy, chances are he should not be the third pick, right? Again, I like what the Jets have been building, though. I think they make a good point. Sadiq last year, Fashion, a good tackle. Garrett Wilson's one of the best wide receivers in the league. Breece Hall is Breece Hall. So, but I think CJ Carr there is an interesting choice. I feel like that's too high for him, but we'll see. Jeremiah Smith to the Dolphins. He might be the best player in college football. But it would be interesting if they drafted him, where is that team going? To start your rebuild at wide receiver. Okay. I mean, I guess if you want. He's going to be great, I think, but I think it's tough if you're starting a rebuild and your first cornerstone pick is wide receiver. Cam Coleman, Texas. Don't know anything about Cam Coleman. One of the reasons, he transferred from Auburn to Texas. This is one of the reasons I like going down this list. Not only do you hear about players maybe that you haven't heard about yet, but you figure out what team they're playing for and where to watch them. So Cam Coleman at Texas is interesting. Dylan Stewart, South Carolina. I've at least heard of him. Leonard Moore. So the cornerback from Notre Dame I've heard about as well. Colin Simmons, Edge, Texas. Will Eccles. I've heard of him too. DT Old Miss. Charlie Becker, wide receiver, Indiana. Trevor Gooseby, tackle from Texas. Ellis Robinson, corner from Georgia. Tradez Green, tight end, LSU. Barante Johnson, safety, Notre Dame. David Stone, tackle, defensive tackle, Oklahoma. Jordan Seaton, shed a tear. Offensive tackle, LSU. It's my Colorado Buffalo. You can't do that to me. Maury Washington, defensive tackle, Oregon. Jamari Johnson, tight end, Oregon. Ashton Hampton, cornerback, Clemson. Kwan Lacey, running back, Ole Miss. Johanze Pierre edge, Alabama. Kelly Jones, cornerback, Mississippi State. KJ Bolden, safety, Georgia. Chris Cole, linebacker, Georgia. I mean, we need Sturls when we get down this far. We needed Sturls to be telling us stuff. I've heard about the center from Iowa, Cade. I don't know his name, but I've heard the center from Iowa is very good. Cade Piper, I guess is how you'd probably say it. But Trevor Lauk, tackle from Iowa. Greg Johnson, guard, Minnesota. Nicky Prongus, tackle, Stanford. A lot of offensive linemen. So something interesting to watch. Last year's draft felt like not great depth at offensive line. You know, not really a top guy, and then the depth is just kind of So looks like maybe a big offensive lineman year in the draft. Justin Scott, DT Miami. A lot of defensive tackles too, and there were only like 2 good ones last year. Ahmad Moten Sr., DT Miami. Him I know. Nick Marsh, wide receiver, Indiana. And Will Held, edge, Clemson. So there you go. Just a rundown of some names maybe that you watched during the college football season. I think it's FCS starts this week, and then you get week 0, so a couple games over the weekend for FBS, and then next week it starts in earnest. And then the last one, this one I just thought was a fun article. Ben Solak, ranking all 32 teams by watchability and excitement. It's Buffalo Sports Thursday, but so of course I want to see where the Bills land, but I also am interested to see where the Broncos land. Big plays, competitive games, star players, nothing offensive. Okay. Interesting. Number 1 is the Chicago Bears. Everybody's been on them this year, but okay. I see this would be my number 1 team, Rams. I think if Stafford stays healthy, then you get McDuffie, Myles Garrett, Aaron Donald on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that's going to be a fun team. Ooh, this is interesting. Lions at 3. Lions the 3rd most interesting team to watch. I hope so for their sake. I'm not super high on them. A lot of people are high on them, and I am not. Their defensive backfield I'm concerned about. Chargers, I think Justin Herbert with a Mike McDaniel offense is going to be a ton of fun. And I've had some people push back on that, and I have no idea why. But I think that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. The New England Patriots at 5? Get out. Oh, my God. Okay, well, I think this is going to go away real quick. But if you say so. Agree on Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. And I think their defense is going to be okay. I really think they are going to be better than most people think. Bengals, fun to watch. Yeah, absolutely. I buy that. The Seahawks are not going to be fun to watch. They're not. They're not a fun team to watch play football. They're a good team, but they're not a fun team to watch play football. Vikings with Kyler Murray is definitely going to be interesting. No doubt about that. It's at least going to be I want to watch and see what happens. I mean, KOC, huge respect for him as a offensive coach. Give him the, Leatherman that is Kyler Murray, and it could be really interesting. Broncos at 10. Oof, I don't know. So, they play super close games all the time, but I just don't know that they're fun to watch. Their defense is certainly fun to watch. And their offense will probably be more explosive this year with Waddle. But, interesting. Lamar Jackson, outside the top 10. It'll be interesting to see how they play. If it's interesting or if it's a boring type of football that they try to play under their new head coach. Houston is not going to be a fun team to watch play. Their defense is going to be great, but I don't think it's going to be a fun team to watch play. Commanders, I don't think is going to be a fun team to watch. Tampa Bay will be a fun team to watch play. I disagree with a lot on this list. I also, Solak just hates the Bills. Eagles, we'll see. We'll see. Bills at 16. Come on. Half the league is more fun to watch play than the Bills. Yeah, I mean, okay. He says Jim Leonard will probably open up the defense. I think it will. I think there's going to be a lot of big plays against them. I think there's going to be a lot of big plays that their defense makes. I think Joe Brady's going to open up the offense. I think Josh Allen is sick, like he says in here. He says DJ Moore is not enough of a star receiver to move that needle. Like, okay, but it's Josh Allen. Like, do you remember the Lions-Bills game and the Rams-Bills game a couple years ago? Like, damn near put up 100 points in 2 games. Come on. What are we doing? 16. Half the league is more fun to watch than the Bills. Get out of here. Jacksonville Jaguars at 17. I feel like that's a little low for them too. Packers, agree. I think they're like one of the more boring, really good teams. I'm not commenting on how good they are. I think they're a really good team, but I just don't think that they're a ton of fun to watch, despite the fact that they have like good weapons, a good quarterback, an interesting defense. But yeah, just a little boring. I think the Colts could be further down on this list too. Don't need to watch them. San Francisco, I think, can be a little bit more fun to watch, but you limit yourself with Brock Purdy at quarterback. Like, go get an actual quarterback, man. Purdy's good. It's just not fun to watch. Carolina Panthers. Yeah, I don't need that. Though I do love Tedoroa McMillan. Chiefs. Oof. It's a tough team to watch the past couple of years. Agree with that. I think the Giants are going to be fun to watch, man. I really do. If Jackson Dart can figure it out a little bit, I think they're going to be fun to watch. Scattaboo, Neighbors, Beckham, and then they've got a good defense too. He points out their defensive pass rushers, and I think they've got really good pass rushers. So, yeah, I think that the Giants are probably a little bit higher for me. Saints in terms of fun to watch, yeah, I think towards the bottom is right. Jets in terms of fun to watch, I'm at least intrigued. Like, they've got really good weapons. Sadiq, Wilson, Hall. But I don't think their defense is very good. But maybe that'll change with Aaron Glenn calling the plays this year. Pittsburgh Steelers have been boring to watch for a decade. I think the Vegas Raiders are going to be interesting. It all matters when Mendoza gets in there. But, you know, Bowers, Max Crosby. I don't know. It's at least interesting. I at least tune in. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't need to watch the Falcons until they can figure out who's going to play quarterback and have them be successful. I'm good on that. Same thing with the Cardinals. Unless, you know, I think Carson Beck, it might be interesting. Yeah, that's what he says. Beck's first start should be worth a second screen. Yeah, just to kind of see how he plays in the NFL. Like I said, they have decent weapons. but it would be at least worth watching Carson Beck play. So I don't know that I'd rank them this far down, because probably at some point during the season they'll be interesting to watch. Titans, yeah, I don't really need to watch them. I do want to see if Cam Ward can develop, but I think down here is probably best. Who do you have below the Dolphins? No. The Browns? No. The Browns are interesting, okay? You cannot tell me that the Browns are 32 here. I wholeheartedly disagree. First of all, the Dolphins are a train wreck. There's nobody on that roster. It's awful. The Dolphin games are going to be the worst games this year, I'm telling you. The Browns are interesting. You want to see Deshaun Watson get booed off the field. You want Shedeur Sanders to come in. You want to see their young wide receivers. You want to see Jared Verse. Look, rookie receiver Denzel Boston, though, he's going to be fun. Yeah, I want to see Shedeur with those two wide receivers and Harold Fannin Jr. I'm not saying that they should be top 10, but 32nd on watchability? Come on. Come on. 30 There's no way they're worse to watch than the Dolphins. Absolutely not. I won't stand for it. And I've been known to be a bigger fan of Shedeur than most people, but listen, do I think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback? No. Does he hold on to the ball too long? Maybe. But is at least going to be fun to watch when Shedeur Sanders gets put in week 2? Yeah. Yes, it will. And the only regret that I have for that terrible organization is that it won't be Browns fans themselves booing Deshaun Watson off the field, because I think he gets replaced before they go back to Cleveland. First 2 games are on the road, and I think he's out of there before then. So a fun little list from Ben Solak. Don't agree with him. As somebody who watches as much football as possible, I don't agree with him on his rankings, but I appreciate him putting it out. It's at least a fun article to argue about for sure. All right, let's see if there's any new stuff that has happened. Josh Jacobs formally charged with 2 misdemeanors. From the domestic violence. So charged with domestic abuse, criminal damage of property, and domestic abuse, disorderly conduct. Strangulation and suffocation and intimidation of a victim. So, listen, innocent until proven guilty. Country's based on that. I'm fine with that being the case. But also, at your job, I don't need to see you. So, you can leave and handle your legal stuff, and we'll let the legal process play out before we judge, but at the end of the day, we don't need to see you on the football field. I don't know that that's how that's going to work out, but it's just my personal thought process there. So that is breaking headlines from the NFL, and that looks like it. Which means for us, that looks like it. Little Buffalo Bills pregame for you, little Bills chat. Had some sicko time talk about if we should keep Keontae Jenkins or Mike Dana, because we're like that. But here we are. All right. Let's see, what's our schedule like? Tomorrow is a free-for-all Friday. If we do it later on, maybe we'll see if Strohs wants to hop on and talk about what he saw in the preseason game. But whatever you guys want to do tomorrow, we will hang out and do it. And hope you enjoy watching the Bills tonight. You can always hit me up on social media if you want to talk about the game. Feel free to shoot me a tweet, Instagram, whatever, at RobTRadio. Appreciate everybody for joining us for a couple hours today. And we'll be back with a free for all Friday tomorrow. Peace, everybody. Enjoy your night.